Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen, other pairs will be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video because, like always, I do have a bonus pair in store. But yeah, guys, I'll go through my trades for the week first and then progress into the analysis shortly after. If there is a particular pair you are after, feel free to skip ahead using the timestamps below. But yeah, I only had one position this week on Euro USD. I had one position which I was carrying over the weekend, over 3 weekends actually. Was it two or three weekends? It's been 3 weeks I've held the position, so a very, very long time. It's hard to remember even when I did take the trade. But dollar Swiss, which again we've been talking about through these weekly analysis videos. Finally, I have exited the position for a win. The market finally came and hit my take profit, coming into some support here on the left. So finally out of that position, and I also had some shorts on Euro USD this week, which again was one of the pairs on the watch list. We analyzed the pair last week as well. We were looking for a lower high to form. That's a really nice structure here. The market just swept these lows, so we're looking for a lower high for a move to the downside, leads back into support, which we got, and then eventually the market took me out of break even. Actually, NFP did it on Friday, so a big push to the upside. Now the market is looking quite bullish, but yeah, I had my targets back down here, which as we can see didn't quite get hit. So I managed to close a small win in Euro USD, but yeah, it's now breaking to the upside, looking quite bullish. And obviously our first pair we look at is Euro USD, so straight into the analysis for this pair. So Euro USD this week, or going into next week, is looking pretty bullish. Dollar's looking pretty weak. I'm still expecting a lot more downside for the DXY, at least maybe around about the 101 price mark for DXY, which does mean if we're going to have a normal sensible Euro USD, we're going to see that inverse correlation come through. So it does probably mean Euro USD is going to continue to head to the upside. And looking at the higher time frames as well, you've probably got a good chance of the market coming back into the highs, because again, on the daily time frame, the market is still giving us bullish structure, still seeing higher lows, not necessarily crazy higher highs. These are more or less equal highs, but you can see we're slightly wicking through that high there, creating some new highs, but we are still very, very present with these higher lows here, and this is potentially just another one. So I'm expecting us to come back into that resistance, which does kind of correlate pretty well with the DXY. So if you want to take a look at the DXY on your own time, you can kind of see the inverse of this price action here, but I'm expecting a push back into the resistance, and this is just a simple impulse correction and now another impulse to the upside. So Euro USD, looking at buys going into the next week, since we have cleared some bearish structure now, broken through this high here on the left, this is now going to be a beautiful place of resistance turn support, and a great place to be looking for some opportunities to go long. So Euro USD next week, we're looking at pullbacks, retest of 1.09200, looks like a solid place to go long, and take some buys to the upside. So me for Euro was bearish coming into the week, but now going into next week, I definitely am scrapping that bearish analysis. I'm looking at this kind of just being a big, I'm looking at this downside move as just being a big correction, and now the market is ready to continue its original impulse, its original path, back to the upside, back to the key daily level around 1.106, 1.108. So that is the trajectory of which I expect Euro USD to follow. So bullish on Euro USD next week, looking at pullbacks back into 1.09200, 1.09300, give or take. And yeah, I mean, these highs here could be great targets depending how far you want to push the trade. But from a daily standpoint, higher time frame standpoint, this is where I do see price ending up at. So yeah, pretty bullish on Euro, looking at buys into next week. Let's see if we can get a nice little break and we test a very impulsive break. And again, that's what I look for my breakouts. I want to see big candles breaking through with a lot of momentum and good distance, and we've got that. So looking at some pullbacks and continuations back up to 1.106 next week for Euro. Okay, so now on to dollar yen, JPY, and we are looking pretty bearish. We were quite choppy for the past couple of weeks, and we were slowly moving to the upside, but quite correctively, and then we start moving sideways. Price was struggling to create some new highs, was also struggling to pull back, but then eventually the market is now breaking to the downside and looking particularly bearish. So I'm looking at buys, as I've been speaking about for the past maybe 1 or 2 weeks now, from around 141, and we still got a bit of a way to go, and I was joking last week saying that I highly doubt we'll get close to this level, and yeah, we're not too far off. I mean, I wouldn't say we're close, but we're not too far off. So the market did surprise me with this big move to the downside. But overall, the trajectory for dollar yen is still a move back to the highs here, and we are reacting with a key daily area. If I go to the left around 145, as you can see, a lot of wicks and support into this area. The market just about came and tapped that area before rolling over, so it does make sense from a technical aspect. But for me, I'm not really focused on the sales of dollar yen. I'm looking at buys near enough around the 141 mark, and we've got some great confluence here. I think we're coming into the 0.786, no, 0.618, sorry. And I'm looking at a bounce from this level, which we broke through and we haven't quite retested yet. So I'm looking to see what we can get at this area. Again, I'm not necessarily expecting price suddenly just to bounce and go straight to the highs. I probably won't even look to hold the trade that long. But if we can create some structure, maybe back to 143, this is not a bad place to target. The risk reward looking very, very good anyway. But yeah, the analysis for dollar yen is still pretty much the same going into next week. I would say there might be some short-term sell opportunities, or maybe more medium-term sell opportunities if we do get some pullbacks. Maybe coming back to retest some of these areas up here, because again, we are creating some bearish structure now with some good bearish momentum. So I do think there is some nice counter trend bearish opportunities for dollar yen on the way down. For me, I'm still pretty focused with the longs of dollar yen, so this is kind of the only opportunity I'm interested in at the moment. But I'm liking the structure, I'm liking the characteristics, and most importantly, I'm liking the momentum in this bearish move here. So it does tell me that there's probably some more downside left for dollar yen, hence why I'm looking to buy further down as well. So if you do get some decent pullbacks to the upside around 143.800, I do think there's some good sells, but I'm still focused on the buys, trying to follow that higher time frame trend to the upside. So this is what I've got going for dollar yen into next week. Okay, so on to dollar CAD. So dollar CAD this week, we had mostly some consolidation and a big move to the upside, followed by a big crash back down after some dollar weakness towards the end of the week. And this is kind of what we were looking for coming into the week. I wasn't expecting the price to push so far up. We were looking for price to come back and respect this prior resistance down here, turn support, look for that kind of bull flag. Big impulse to the upside, correction, another impulse to the upside. So we were looking for that continuation originally. But then I was talking about this strong area of broken support on the 4H daily time frame. Big support here, was looking to hold resistance. It kind of has, but this is a big fake out to the upside. So obviously the market broke through, then came back straight down. So again, I'm still pretty bearish on dollar. I'm still pretty bearish on dollar CAD ever since we cleared these lows and broke through some key daily structure. If I flick to the daily time frame real quick, you can see we've taken out some significant lows here. So I've been looking for the new lower low, lower high essentially, and the market to continue south. And with this big kind of fake above that support, turn resistance and creating that high and coming back down so aggressively, it looks like the market has now printed that lower high. So I'm anticipating this to be the next lower high for continuation back into support level here around 1.315. So we had the original high up here, market came back down, start respecting support, create the low, pull back up, create a lower high, came back to retest it with that double top, then broke through structure, create a new low. So I'm looking at this being the next lower high for continuation to the downside. Oh, did not mean to click that at all. Continuation to the downside, back into the low. So that's kind of the structure, that's kind of the theory, my thought process behind dollar CAD at the moment. So I am looking at shorts. Let me just delete that, go back to the 4H time frame, draw up a little bit clearer. So I'm still looking at a retest, break and retest of this level, but I need to see the market start really rejecting, throwing wicks into this level and start getting some nice price action at that level. Right now we've broken through it, broken back below. The market's not showing much respect to that same level at 1.332. But if you can pull back, potentially form a lower high, start respecting this level, throw wicks into that level, then sales look good. Nice little stop loss above it, and obviously targets, whether you're looking at this low or that low, they do look pretty attractive. So dollar CAD for me, the bias is definitely bearish. We're seeing some good high time frame bearish momentum. And I do think from a 4H standpoint, the market is now failing to break through this key level. So I do think as long as we can respect it, our next target is going to be to the downside, back into these lows here, or even, like I said, even to these lows here look pretty good as well, depending how far you want to push the trade. But my bias for dollar CAD is definitely bearish going to next week. If we do break back above it, then we start creating some successive higher lows, then yeah, I'll probably throw that bearish bias in the bin and start looking for some break and retest to capitalize on some more upside. So if we do start breaking back above 1.332, then yeah, I will scrap that bearish bias and start looking for long opportunities. But at the moment, we are still trading back below it, heavy impulse down. And like I always say, when we get an impulse in one direction, followed by the impulse in the exact opposite direction, normally it's a fake out. So if the market impulses up and then impulses down, normally this is a big fake out for the market to roll over, kind of giving us a big head and shoulder pattern. But yeah, this is what I'm looking at with this PA. So looking at pushback down to 1.312 from a retest of 1.332. But yeah, looking for shorts going into next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound this week, I was coming into the week looking for some buying opportunities, some counter trend play, looking for a bit of a bull shape price action to play out and see some more upside, but we failed to hold my area of confluence, coming to some nice support. Also got a nice trend line through this area too. I was looking to see if we can get some good wicks, some good rejection, and possibly see another bounce to the upside and continue with these higher lows here. Ooh, there we go. Continue with these higher lows and possibly see another one and a push back to the highs, but we never got that. Market broke through that area of interest pretty quickly, retested it, and actually continued south, following that higher time frame bearish momentum. So my kind of thought process now with Euro Pound is this is pretty much consolidation, equal highs, equal lows. I'm not really interested to jump back into the price action here. If you like this kind of market conditions, then I do think there's probably some nice short-term buys in play for Euro Pound for a nice pop to the upside. Again, never really my type of trade. The market structure is still overly bearish in the higher time frames. It's consolidating here in the 4H, and again, that's not really my conditions I look to follow. So for me, what I'll be waiting for Euro Pounds, if we can snap through support, see some bearish momentum, through that area, then look for some pullbacks and retest to continue this bearish momentum and continue that overall bearish trend to the downside. That's my type of trade, and that's the conditions I'm after for my trading. Looking for buys and sells within this range here between 0.85200 and also 0.86300. Anything in here is kind of no man's land for me now that we've broken through that confluence area and now respecting resistance and respecting support. This is textbook consolidation for me. So I'll be looking to see if the market can break underneath 0.85100, and then if you can get some good momentum, some good trends coming back into play, I'll look for my pullbacks and continuations to the downside. But if you want to play support and you're looking for reversals, play within the consolidation, then there might be some temporary buys at play. But again, that's never really my type of trade. This is the only thing I'll be focusing on that's of good quality. So Euro Pound, I have to say I'm leaning to the short side of things. The quality of the structure is quite poor, but I need to see that breakout for me to even start looking for the sells. So that is what I'll be looking at for Euro Pound next week. Let's see if we can get a breakout. Okay, so over to AUD/USD. So AUD/USD, I was expecting a bit more downside from this pair. We did see it shortly. It didn't really last too long. I was talking about a retest of this broken support here, turn resistance. The market kind of fluctuated at that level, broke slightly above it. We did see a move to the downside. Didn't quite come into the area I was expecting it to come into, which is this daily level of support, because again, we've got this big daily range here where the market's kind of consolidating in between. So we've got the high of the range at 0.679, the low of the range at 0.657, and the market has been rebounding and bouncing from these levels. Had a nice breakout to the downside, turned out to be false, and again, same thing to the upside, turned out to be false as well. So it looks like the market is starting to struggle at these lows here. Again, the market's not quite perfect. In the perfect world, we'll be bouncing at that support level here. Looks like the market is reacting slightly above it. I mean, if I can make the zone a little bit bigger and draw it from the body to the wick here, the market's kind of kissing that area there. So, technically the market is kind of near enough below the range. So if we are going to have a successful bounce, we're seeing some bullish engulfing candles. If you do break past this resistance here, if I take that across, if you do break past this resistance here, I'll be expecting us to see a push back into the high of the range, near enough around 0.678. So there could be some nice break and retest. Certainly if this momentum kicks back in, because we have seen a pretty big bullish engulfing candle on the 4H caused by NFP. So we need to see that momentum will sustain. Obviously the market's just closed now, but if we open up, see some nice candle closures breaking through it, nice little break and retest, sort of what we're looking at on Euro USD. We've had a really nice breakout there. Now waiting for the retest and the continuation. Kind of the same thing with AUD/USD. It's just that we haven't had the breakout yet. So there could be some nice short-term buys kind of playing within the range. Again, never really my type of trade, and I probably won't be focusing on AUSD going into next week unless we start breaking out the consolidation, aka breaking out the highs there, or breaking out the lows. Then I'll probably contemplate looking to get into some moves with AU, but quite frankly it's a bit too range bound for me. So there are other pairs that look a little bit better, which you'll see in my watch list. If you're in my Telegram or follow me on TradingView, you'll see my watch list going into next week, so keep a lookout for that. But AU probably won't be on it. But yeah, the best I can see is if we clear this high of that resistance, see some nice breakouts similar to Euro. Again, feel free to flip back to Euro to see what I'm talking about, but you could probably see a nice move back to the high of the range there at 0.678. So that's probably the best I can see with AUSD playing, within the range and take advantage of some bullish momentum. So yeah, looking at buys and then breaking retest of 0.67 back to 0.678 next week. Okay, so up next we've got NZD CAD. NZD CAD, big move to the upside this week. We were looking for sales coming into some nice bearish structure here. However, the market didn't hold resistance, all that trendline confluence there. The market broke through, actually had a quite shallow break and retest and used that to continue higher. But it hasn't really changed my overall bias on the pair. If we zoom out, look at the bigger picture, we're still pretty bearish on the weekly time frame, still heading to the downside of that bearish structure, daily as well. So until we start snapping through some major highs, aka this high here on the left, which we're just about coming into, or not quite yet, around 0.828, around that area there. If we do break through this, then okay, we probably got a big double bottom reversal here, looking at some higher lows and some upside off the back of that. But if we came back and respect this resistance here, I do think we can see probably another big sell-off similar to what we had here as well. Because again, every time the market tries to come back into resistance, if you look at previous price action, every time the market comes back into resistance, sells off again, it always fails to break through the major highs. Nice double top over there, came back to respect it, another lower high, drops to the downside. So as long as we maintain that structure, we can probably indicate, or that's not the correct white word, we can probably speculate that coming back into this resistance, this level, there's a good chance we're probably going to see some nice downside if we see the necessary price action telling us, okay, we're getting some good rejections, we're getting some good bearish engulfings. We're seeing sufficient price action telling us that, okay, the market's holding on to this level, we're probably going to anticipate some more downside. So if we can see some good quality price action in this area, shorts are looking good, anticipating the market to hold onto resistance rather than break through, then we can expect to see some downside for NZD CAD. Again, you probably will be looking at a pushback down to the low there, but of course there's some other areas you look to take profit or manage your trade, however you look to manage your trades. You don't necessarily have to look for the whole home run all the way back down to the lows there. Obviously the risk reward would look pretty good, but it's better to be safe than sorry and take your profit at sensible places rather than the optimal place. So yeah, 0.81450, this looks like a good area, but also 0.80400 does make sense as well, looking for the full swing back to the downside. But based on your risk reward and how you manage trades, that'll be up to you. But in terms of location for entries and looking for a trade setup, this is looking pretty good. Just need to see how we get there, because obviously we could just open up Monday, Tuesday, see a big candle closing above it. That will completely invalidate the setup. So we need to see some good sufficient price action at that area at 0.82800, 0.82700, and then we can start looking for some sell setups later on. So this is what I'm looking at going to next week for NZD CAD. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So for me, for this one, it's turning into a bit of consolidation here on the 4H time frame, which is again my time frame of focus. On the higher time frames, we can see there is still a nice bullish trend to it. Daily still seeing a lot of bullish momentum. Weekly still seeing a lot of bullish momentum. Starting to get a few wicks now, so we can see there's exhaustion, which is kind of represented by the consolidation on the 4H time frame. But that higher time frames is displaying bullish momentum. So the overall trend is up for pound NZD. So I do favor the buys over the sells, but in terms of the conditions, not looking too particularly great. So I'm a bit more neutral on the 4H, so I can see two good opportunities. One buys and another one sells, and I'm looking at this specific level here at 2.07250. This is more or less the level I was looking to buy from coming into the week. If we form another higher low, I was looking for a push to the upside, but we quickly violated
that structure very early on in the week. So I never got to see those buying opportunities, but now we'll come back to retest it as a resistance. So if you can hold this, we could be looking at a fake out to the upside over here, a retest of that structure, and a continuation back down to the low of the range, near enough 2.04. So you could be seeing the market fluctuate between two key levels, have a big fake out, retest the resistance it faked, and then come back to sell off to the downside. Or if we are going to see the higher time frame trend continue, the market probably is going to break back above this level, and we look for the retest and continuations back into the price swing high, which is the point here, wick high of 2.09. So at the same time, I can see some good sells if we throw some wicks into this level, see some good rejection come Monday, because again, we're pretty much trading in the area at the moment. So early on next week, let's see what type of price action we can get. If the market's throwing some wicks, rejecting the level, see some good bearish momentum, then yeah, sells look good. But if we do break through it, get a sufficient retest, you know, we could be looking at push back to resistance, back to highs, and continuing that higher time frame momentum. So I can see some good buying opportunities if we break above it, and also I can see some good sell opportunities if we don't, and we just start throwing some big wicks and rejecting the level. So because it is choppy market conditions, I'm a bit more neutral on the full H, but I'm definitely well aware of what the higher time frames are doing, which is still showing a lot of bullish momentum present in the market. So we'll see what happens come Monday, because again, we're pretty much trading at that area. If we are breaking through, buys look good, and vice versa. If we don't, then sells look good as well. And if you do take a sell, and let's say it stops out, it hits your stop loss, and it does break through, then you catch a retest. You know, if you have sufficient risk to reward, it shouldn't really matter. You might lose 1R, but then gain 2 or 3 depending on your risk to reward, and you make money back plus more. So don't be too scared to take trades when they do present themselves. As long as you've got a good risk reward, good plan, you know, you'll come on top in the end. So this is what I'm looking at for pound NZD going into next week. Again, market conditions not quite there, but decent opportunities nonetheless. Okay, so over to CAD Yen. So CAD Yen, I'm starting to like the price action with CAD Yen. Very, very aggressive, dump to the downside, breaking out this consolidation here. And again, CAD Yen came into a very, very nice area of resistance, which we were pointing out last week on my weekly analysis. If I scale to the weekly time frame, you can see the market's just about came and kissed this level of resistance here, which again is a very, very big level. You can see on the monthly as well, even better. If I draw it from the body to the wick, you can see we're coming into this level where we had a big sell-off. Market's now come back into that level and is now reacting with it. So I said I'm no longer looking at buys for CAD Yen, even though higher time frames are still pretty bullish. We're still seeing a lot of bullish momentum, but I said I'm no longer looking for buys. Number one, we're seeing a lot of signs of exhaustion, aka the market was consolidating. And number two, we're coming to such a big level of resistance on the higher time frames. I don't really want to be looking to swing buys into that area. Sure, on the lower time frames, you might get scalp or day trade a few decent pips, but for me, looking for 50, 100, 150, 200, sometimes even more, you know, I'm not going to be too successful buying into a key level of resistance. I always want to avoid higher time frame levels. But in this case, we've consolidated and broken in the opposite direction. So now I'm selling away from the levels. So the sells look a lot better now for CAD Yen since we've had some decent momentum breaking out. It has been a quite big breakout, so I'm asking to see if the market can come back and retest that area, which is a little bit of a big ask because it is quite far away, but it shows me that there's a lot of bearish momentum present. Obviously, we're seeing the higher time frame kind of level come into play now. So it tells me that there's some good confluence here. And if we do get back there for a decent retest, most likely we'll get a decent trade opportunity out of it. Again, obviously waiting for sufficient rejection when we get there first. But that's kind of what I'm looking at for CAD Yen. I'm not really looking at buys. There's no really a good area to buy it right now for CAD Yen. I'm kind of seeing a lot of minor and small levels of support and resistance on the way up. So there is no particular key level that is looking good for any buys for me personally, with the way I trade for CAD Yen. So I'm only focusing on the sell opportunities right now, and we do have some good higher time frame backing for these sells as well. Again, I will still advise not to push the trade too far, because for me this is still technically counter trend. I know the full HU has some nice consolidation and some nice bearish structure, so it looks like there's a reversal on the full H time frame, but I'm definitely well aware of what the weekly and the daily, daily, monthly is doing. So it could turn into be a reversal, but I'd rather be safe than sorry and take my profit at sensible areas and and watch the market continue, or try and be too optimistic and not take my profit when I should do. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at for CAD Yen. Looking at a retest of 108,600 and probably some continuations back down to the most recent low. So if you do pull back from here, this will probably be my target, or at least this low here around 106,500. So that's the plan next week for CAD Yen. Okay, so onto Pound USD. So Pound USD for me is looking pretty bullish, and I think for a lot of people as well, not just me, but it is looking pretty bullish. I was looking at sales coming into the week to see if we can hold this area of confluence. We had some nice trend line going through the market. We had also this big level of support. The market was rejecting it quite well, but never really kicked in bearish momentum and broke through, retested it, and then continued to the upside. And obviously NFP helped it out with a big push, coming right back to the highs. Not too sure if we made some new highs. Maybe we did by a pip or so, but we more or less came back to resistance, back to the highs, and it's looking pretty bullish. So if you look at the lower time frames, hourly looking bullish, full H looking bullish, higher time frames, daily, weekly, monthly looking bullish as well. We're seeing a lot of bullish momentum present for Pound USD, and again for DXY I still do see more downside to 101. So it tells me that Pound USD, if I'm correct with that analysis, most likely has some more room left to the upside, which does correlate quite well because we do have this lovely daily level of support running through the market, near enough around 1.3, which is still a long-term target for Pound USD. So a lot of dollar pairs are kind of in sync with the same picture, at least Euro USD, Pound USD, and the DXY. Aodu USD and NZD USD a little bit hit and miss, but those three pairs do look pretty well correlated, and the price action is kind of all in sync. So Pound USD going forward, looking at some pullbacks. Again, we don't really want to be buying into resistance here. If you get a nice little pullback, see another higher low, even some buys back into that same resistance, because we are trading that resistance now. Let's say we open up bearish, pull back into, where is this, 1.275, we'll call it 1.275. Look for some buys down there. Simply buys back up into that same resistance, looks pretty good. Obviously there's that 1.3, you can probably push the trade to. A little bit aggressive, it's quite far away, you're looking about 225 pips away, so it's a bit aggressive, but if the higher time frames do follow that trajectory, there's a good probability we'll get there. So it's up to you how you want to manage your trades and your targets. But for next week, expecting least price to return back to 1.284, and long term looking at 1.3 there as well, and keep an eye out for a possible break and retest as well, because we might not see this pullback, we might just break free, get a slight retracement, retest the level, and continue as well. So in this case scenario, that 1.3 target makes a lot more sense. This one, you're probably better off just targeting the resistance there on the left. So yeah, Pound USD, this is what I'm looking at going into next week. Okay, so on to Pound CAD. So Pound CAD is looking very, very strong, and price action is looking very tidy. And this is exactly what I wanted to happen last week. This is what I was talking about, a big inverse head and shoulders, breaking through the neckline, taking out this high on the left. And now we're looking at some pullbacks. So essentially, this is the head and shoulder I was talking about, left head and right shoulder. Price is broken through some key structure here on the left, breaking through that high. And also, most importantly, we've done it with a lot of momentum as well. That tells me the buyers are most likely here to stay. We're following that higher time frame trajectory. If I go to daily, you can see overly there's a bullish trend at play here, weekly as well. So I'm really liking the price action here with Pound CAD. Yeah, looking at some pullbacks and looking at some continuations. We've got the high here on the left at 1.7144. And that is going to be the target going forward, probably even further as well. But Pound CAD and Pound USD are quite correlated pairs. So in terms of the trajectory of both of them, they're pretty much in sync. So going forward, we're looking at some corrections for Pound CAD. A couple of areas of interest. We've obviously got the resistance we've just broken out, and again with some decent momentum, cleared it by some distance as well. So this break and retest looks good, and also this area here too. If we have a deeper pullback, although I'm not too sure we'll pull back that far, but if we do, again the market does surprise me, so we may do pull back that far. So that is also going to be an area that I'll look at, but most likely we'll probably see a break and retest at this level. If we even see a break and retest, we might just open up bullish and continue flying back into resistance, and we might not see a pullback. That's obviously going to be another possibility, but if the market is kind enough to pull back, then we will be looking at some long opportunities from 1.69500 and also 1.68500. Those are two levels which jump out to me with some good confluence and just obey structure pretty well. So pound CAD going to next week, definitely bullish, looking for a price back to the prior swing highs in the weekly. We've got good multi-time frame analysis, good synchronization with correlated pairs, and also the higher time frames, and liking the momentum and the structure in the full H most importantly. So looking at some pullbacks, 1.69500 and also 1.68500, and targets back up to 1.71448 for next week. Okay, so over to pound yen. So pound yen, very choppy and starting to consolidate. We've got some equal highs around 183, 828, and some equal lows more or less around 182, 250. So again, consolidation now. And what I've noticed with with yen pairs in general is that yen pairs are starting to take a bit of a breather. Again, we've been in that crazy bullish trend for quite a while. Markets are definitely overextended. They need to have that kind of snapback retracement, which a lot of yen pairs are doing, particularly CAD yen, Euro yen, dollar yen, pound yen, obviously not so much, but we're seeing yen pairs starting to retrace. And again, with FX markets, we never really go in one direction for a long time. Yes, we do see some big moves as we've seen in the past year or two, COVID as well, Russia, Ukraine. We do see some big moves, but they never really sustain for too long before eventually snapping back. Other markets like indices and stocks, they do trend a lot better than FX markets, and we consolidate about 70% of the time. So I'm expecting these yen pairs to take a breather, and looks like pound yen could be joining those other yen pairs. So going forward with pound yen, there's no particular level which was selling off, on the higher time frames. Like with CAD yen, we've got a big level on the weekly and the monthly time frame. Pound yen for me is still in the middle of nowhere really. So I'm not too particularly keen on the sells with pound yen. But I know some people do like trading pound yen a lot, and if you are going to look to trade pound yen, if you can see a break out of the consolidation, some shorts do look okay, and I wouldn't again push it too far. Push back into the resistance here around 180 does make sense, but equally we can find support and continue bullish at any point really. We're seeing some signs that the market's likely to retrace, but not really reverse just yet, and there's a big difference between the two. So going forward, pound yen, some sales look good, but we do want price to start clearing and breaking out of support, breaking out that consolidation. Let's see if we can get a nice breakout of 182, 250, look for some retest, and then some short-term sales back into 180 looks pretty good, and that's the best I can see right now with pound yen. I wouldn't really look for buys. The market's quite exhausted, not really seeing some good momentum to the upside anymore. We're starting to consolidate, so I wouldn't really look to buy the market anymore unless, let's say, we break out the resistance here. Then of course the buys look good again. If we have a nice breakout, see some good momentum like we saw here, then break and retest, see the next high low continuations, that will look good. That's the only time I would consider looking to buy a pound yen at the moment. But if we do start to see the market roll over, break structure, break out the consolidation to the downside, then retest and some sales is probably the best opportunity you'll see, and continuations back down to 180. So looking at some retracement for pound yen, it could be time to see some major retracement for the yen pairs, at least for pound yen, because some other yen pairs we've kind of already seen it. But looking at 180 going into next week. Okay, so on to gold. So we just missed some sell opportunities with gold. I was looking at some sales coming into near enough 1940. We test this broken level of support, turn resistance, so beautiful support there. We had some lower highs, 1, 2, 3, 4, looking at fifth one. As you can see, we just about missed on that area before the market did dump to the downside. On another day, maybe we did wick into that area and caught some nice sells for push into the support, but again, it's all about probabilities. Probability didn't allow us to get that trade opportunity, but we are coming back into it now. So I'm still looking at some shorts for gold. We are coming back into the area of resistance, the area of confluence again, and there's a possibility the market just wants to double top it before moving to the downside. So if we can get some more wicks into this area, some good rejection around 1935, 1940, I will be looking for some sells coming into next week for a push back down to the downside, at least back into this prior low here, but most likely, depending on risk reward, back into the swing lows here around 1895. and looking for some more downside. The market's still creating these lower highs, so I'm not bullish with gold yet, but if we do break structure and break above this, then at that point, yes, I will be bullish and expecting some more upside, and looking for a break and retest 1940 is looking like a decent idea as well, because at that point the market's now printing some higher lows, breaking structure to the upside, creating some higher highs, anticipating another one for continuation to the upside. And like I said, I'm still expecting a big high low in the daily time frame, as we can see here, 1, 2, still expecting another one for a big push to the upside. So if you do break through that area of confluence on the 4H time frame, if you do break through this area here, then I'm anticipating that bigger swing to come into action. So I'm looking at sells mainly for gold, because we still haven't broken through that area just yet. But at the same time, I can see some good buying opportunities as well if we do break to the upside. So at the moment, we'll stay focused on the sell, similar opportunity to pound NZD as well. Except I do like the structure of gold a lot more, because at least we've got a bit of a bearish trend to play with. Pound NZD is more consolidation than the 4H. So yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing with gold. Some sells from around 1940, but if we do break through, we'll keep an eye on the buys here. And again, target wise, it's utilizing price structure on the left here. These are all good target places depending how far you want to push the trade. But going forward, this is what I'm looking at for gold next week. Okay, so onto Bitcoin. Bitcoin for me still consolidating at some key areas of resistance. As you can see in the daily chart here, coming back to that swing high. Still seeing the market move sideways. We had some good momentum not too long ago, but since then, over the past few days, the market is just consolidating. So I'm not really seeing much opportunities in Bitcoin unless you want to trade within the range, of course. We're still trading inside that big 30K level of support in the weekly time frame. Again, as you can see, this is the last support level which gave us those new all-time highs. So it's a very, very key support level, which is now resistance. Again, a lot of people got sucked into all this bullish momentum a couple of weeks ago. We saw this big bullish weekly candle, rightly so. It's a lot of momentum, it is something to get excited about, but it closed directly into an area of resistance. If this closed above the level, then yeah, that would be a lot, that'd be very exciting. We could be seeing a big breakout and market could be flying still, but we closed back into the same level which rejected price previously. The market came into this level, rejected price, now it's back there again. In terms of price action, we haven't done anything too significant with Bitcoin. So as long as we maintain, this level of resistance here, market moves sideways, it's kind of still 50-50 with Bitcoin, unless we finally get the breakout. And again, if we do get the breakout to the upside, we are looking at 35K back into the support level here, which we broke through, never got the retest. So we do have some targets to the upside. And again, if the market rejects this level, we've got some targets to the downside too. So trajectory wise, depending on which way the market breaks out, it's not too important. There's definitely opportunities with Bitcoin for sells and for buying opportunities, but right now I can definitely say it's consolidating. So in this area, unless you want to trade, sell high and buy low, go ahead. But again, this is not really good conditions for myself. But if we do break to the upside, then yeah, buying opportunities become a lot neater. And same thing with the sells as well, because again, sells look good, respecting key level. If we break to the downside, expecting more of it, some lower highs, continuations back down to 25,500. But if we break to the upside, looking for a retest, and again, we've got some targets around 35K as well. So that's still what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. Same analysis for the past kind of couple of weeks now. Market's still consolidating, and by next week, if we're still consolidating, we repeat the same analysis. So yeah, this is what I'm looking at going into next week for Bitcoin. Okay, so last but not least, we've got our final pair, which is our bonus pair, which is CAD Swiss. So CAD Swiss is looking very, very good for next week. We finally broke out a range. People have been asking me to analyze CAD CHF for the past kind of week or so. I said I haven't been a fan because we've been consolidating, but finally we broke to the downside with some really good momentum. So going to next week, I'm looking at some pullbacks and some sells, and again, looking at the higher time frames, again, we can see overall direction is to the downside as well. So we've got a lot of higher time frame backing. So now that we've just broken to the downside with some good, healthy momentum, we're looking for some continuations of that. Again, we had some equal highs here, market failing to break through that resistance, then started to create some lower highs, And most importantly, we saw this big breakout to the downside, clearing out these lows, and these lows. So next week, I'm looking at pullback to the upside, retest some nice healthy structure, previous support and resistance, bunch of wicks there to the downside. Let's see if we can throw some wicks there to the upside, connect the dots with these lower highs as well. We've got some really good confluence. So if we can get that pullback into, where is it? 0.67400, 0.67500. We can call it. I will be looking for some entries to take some shorts. And again, targets could just be back down to the prior low. Keep it simple. If the risk reward's there, you know, why not keep it simple? If you want to push trade a little bit further, there's some areas down here on the left. As you can see, a lot of resistance here. Rejection there as well. So 0.66730 looks good. There's some support down here as well. Obviously, there's a lows all the way down there if you're feeling very, very brave. But again, it'll be up to you. I'll probably be looking at push back down into the prior swing low. Coming out, there we go. Into the price swing low, because again, if the risk reward's there, no need to try and push trade too far. If you want to, you can still leave small amounts to trickle. But in terms of the quality of the structure, looking very, very good next week for CAD CHF, and definitely will be on the watch list going into next week, which again, follow me on Telegram, you'll see the watch list that I have for next week. So CAD CHF looking at some shorts from 0.67500 and targets back down to the prior low if it's from this area, because again, we might fall down a little bit further before we pull back, but more or less these swing lows around 0.66900. So that's the plan next week for CAD CHF, and that brings us to the end of the video. So thank you so much for watching the video, guys, especially if you stuck it all the way to the end. I know it's a very, very long video and recapping a lot of pairs, but again, it does benefit a lot of people. And if it's benefiting you, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and leave me a comment down below telling me that you do enjoy the video. I always like to see that, and again, I'll make sure I do reply to you guys. But again, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Like I said, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell as well, so you don't miss on any uploads or videos in the future. But thanks again for watching the video. Have a nice weekend, and I'll catch you all next week.